Right, this is Bradley Andrews for the Practice of Mission Fieldwork Project 2. I'm going to be talking about an experience tonight of a place that my wife and I actually went to tonight. It was called the Kadampa Meditation Center. Phoenix. It was a Buddhist meditation center, and tonight they actually had their open house, which was where they gave a lot of information. I'll go into that in just a little bit. But the first thing that my wife and I, after we had a dinner afterwards to talk about our experience, but one of the first things that we realized was just how warm the place was. Right off the bat, they for this open house, they gave an introduction of their style of Buddhism, Kadampa, and they went through the history of their beliefs and where they came from. The guy who led the modern Buddhism for Western culture was a guy named Gelsang Gyatso, and how he really kind of revolutionized what it meant to have Buddhism in modern day times. Everything from not just having a temple, old kind of looking temple, but places that are warmth and welcoming. And that was one thing that we noticed right off the bat, was just entering the place. It was just warm and just very welcoming, just greeting people. It was nice. I wish we had that feel in a lot of churches. But as we were going about, like just going and hearing about where this style of Buddhism came from, they really broke it down into simple terms. And if there was a term that didn't make sense, they did really well at defining those words. So the first kind of like half an hour was just an intro of the lineage. But then what we did was we went into the other room this room was, they asked us to take off our shoes, which we did, and into their meditation center area, where there was comfy chairs, and places where you could sit on the floor if you needed to. But then in the front, there was this giant, long table of shrines with different figures of Buddha, but then also Gelsang Gyatso's image on this teaching platform as well. And the guy there, his name was what was his name? I don't remember his name off the bat, but he just went through and shared just what each thing was a representation of, and how it is part of their beliefs. And just sitting there, it was first a little uneasy just about all the statues that were around, especially because there were offerings, and they shared like the different offerings that they do daily, but just the intricateness of it and just the art. It was nice to just see artwork and there be symbolism. They didn't believe that it was the incarnation of the Buddhas or the different figures there, but that it was a representation to help you be, point you in the right direction of how to attain enlightenment. So that was kind of the first half an hour, and just sharing a lot of the details of Buddhism, and then they went into a teaching. Guy went up front and did a teaching, but he also shared the different leaderships. And it was interesting how he said, well, basically in this place we try and be welcoming and create a nice atmosphere, which they did. But then how he shared, like, even they believe in equality, and how even the kind of head of their style of Buddhism was a woman, and even the lead teacher there at that center was a woman as well, and just how it really were all equals. And then they went into a teaching which came from How to Transform Your Life. It's a free ebook online from Geisha Gyatso, their head guy, but it kind of went into the basic teachings and how it was very engaging and very relaxing and calming, and how the presenter shared, his name was Sean, and just asking questions. He started off by saying, well, what are the two things that people strive for on this earth? And he went around and was like, okay, well, how about this? Coming down to the conclusion that the two things is try to avoid suffering and living for happiness. And those are the two things. And then, but what is happiness? Happiness needs to pass the test for genuine happiness, which the first one is does it always bring you happiness? And does the more you do it, the more happiness it brings you. And he actually really broke it down, and he got people to think. And it was interesting just to hear him rationalize different aspects of Buddhism, and even to the point where saying this is a rational belief. And so it was really how do I say this? It was really interesting to see the dynamic of the group, because the majority were women, middle-aged women. There was one or two guys when I entered into for the center. The other guy was there's like, yes, there's another guy, but a lot of it was middle-aged women. After the teaching, they went and practiced a meditation, and it was a guided meditation. It was interesting coming from a counseling point of view as well, how we do meditations as well, or not meditation, but being mindful, calming the mind. And it was very practical things, and I found myself, even something I do with just getting people to relax, was something they did in the meditation. Just being mindful of your view and your outlook on life, which I was having to sift for myself. Is this okay for me to do this? And I had a good conversation with my wife afterwards, just saying, okay, well, if it's sifting through different level or different aspects of, is it morally wrong, etc., etc. And it was just a good conversation. By the end, though, I did have some questions, and one of the questions I was able to approach the guy who was teaching was, what's the difference between Buddhism and Hinduism? And he was able to share that it was nice for him to just say, well, genuinely, I don't know as much about Hinduism, and how he said, well, with our Buddhist way, like, we think there's many different ways, but this is just one path, or one of several ways paths to enlightenment. And the dialogue was very good, and he was able to affirm, just saying that was a good question. Even other questions of just enlightenment, and is backsliding, and their belief backsliding does happen, and just about karma even, and explaining that at a very elementary level, which was very appreciative for me and my wife. We were just able to actually ask questions. So that was kind of the experience, and they were really good at promotional stuff. By the time I left, there was a lot of just information. This is what we can do. We're here throughout the week if you just want to pop in for the meditation center, read, or have questions. They were very welcoming, and just getting what they do out there. They said you're welcome to any class. There's a beginner's meditation. There's learning more about their Buddhist beliefs. So it was very well crafted. I even have a Buddhism for kids, and how to get kids to just be more meditation and a better outlook. And that was really a big thing, is just the outlook that they have. So overall, it was a great experience, but the thing I really enjoyed was just the interfaith dialogue that we were able to have, and talking afterwards with my wife, just how it even sharpened us just in what we believe, where do we stand. This is something we want to do more of. So just being able to have those dialogues, and being able to also be ready for what we stand for as well, but also coming from a genuine aspect of trying to understand what another person believes. So overall, it was a great experience, and I learned a lot about Buddhism and where their stance and where they come from. But overall, I found that I don't know, it was interesting. Christian beliefs, maybe it's just because being in seminary, I found that the answers were a lot more simple than the way Buddhism gave their answers. But even the guy who was speaking, my wife and I were saying that we think he came from a Christian background, because he said, well, Protestants, Lutherans, Mormonism, and first off we were like, Mormonism and Protestantism are two different things, but just how he kind of lumped things together. But we think he came from that background, so it was interesting to see how he comes from that background into Buddhism, and his struggle was with hierarchy. And I don't know, it was just interesting to see a person's different point of view. So I guess walking in another person's shoes and seeing where they're coming from, which I guess is the purpose of these fieldwork projects. So overall, great experience. Really enjoyed it. Once again, we went to the Kadampa Meditation Center, and the Kadampa, with the last word being pa, which is to put into practice, that they were saying is they really want you to practice these meditations, which I would, for Christianity and our churches, I wish we would be as warm and welcoming as this place was a lot of the times, and not just warm and welcoming, but at a basic level every time, just walking through people, whether that be through prayer, whether that be in fellowships or any other aspect. But once again, overall great experience, and thank you so much, Professor, for giving us this assignment.